All right, great turnout today. Welcome everybody to the August CaTS monthly webinar. We have a couple of topics to present today and some newly refactored slides. So I'll be quick with the introductions here. Here at Pennington, we have myself, Connie Murla, and Robbie Beyl, who will be presenting for us shortly on scale variables in REDCap. I put in the chat window. If you have any questions today, go ahead and put them through our chat window, and we'll try to get to them through the course of the webinar. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Robbie. Great.
All right, thank you. So we're just going to kind of briefly go over some scale variables in REDCap. Again, this is not a end-all be-all discussion about all types of variables in REDCap. We're just going to go over a couple and talk about how we can implement them in different ways and different results we can have from that. Okay, so first let's go over the definitions. So what do I mean by scale variable? Well, first of all, there is no real universal definition of scale variable. So what we tend to mean in this conversation right now is simply a variable that has numeric values. Or if it has categorical, it can be ordered. So maybe an example of it is your BMI. We could have a continuous BMI where it's your ratio of weight and height, or we could have them as categories, underweight, normal, obese. So both of those would be, for this instance, scale variables. We could also have variables like, are you happy? Where, again, clearly you can have a happiness rating. So if we talk about scale variables, let's also, for a moment, talk about what's not scale variables. So these would be simply categorical variables. These you can think of usually as multiple choice response, and it cannot be ordered. So a couple examples of this would be gender, so we have males or females, or something like a hair color, where we have different hair colors. Now that's not what we're going to be focusing on today, but I just wanted to give an example of categorical variables and what we mean by those. Okay. So the scale variables that I really want to talk about today are going to be subjective scale variables. So this is where we have no single correct response. So this isn't like a weight or BMI where there is one weight that you are and that's the correct weight. Any other number is wrong. These are going to be more subjective on the user. So let's go back to the how happy are you right now. So the user can put in, maybe they're very happy, maybe they're not happy at all. But that can vary minute by minute, or again, user to user, and there's no one true value that you currently are. So that's the scale variables we want to talk about. We have to consider a couple things when we're creating these kind of subjective scale variables. First, how do we ask this question? What is the best way? Is there a way that's going to be more leading than the other way? So we have to think about that. We have to think primarily about what kinds of choices do you give your user? Do you want to give them all the freedom in the world to write a paragraph about are they happy or not? Or are you want to limit them to yes, no? Let's think about that. And the final thing is, how do we retain the most information we can from this question? So we want to always lessen the burden on the subject and have them give us the most information possible in the least amount of time and effort. Okay, so what I'm going to briefly go over are basically 3 ways to ask the same question in REDCap. So I'm going to frame my question, during the last week, how happy were you? So that's my question. So first of all, I want to note that clearly I said during the last week. I gave a time frame. That's always important in these subjective questions because people can think, oh, I was happy just in this moment. They're talking about today. They're talking about the month, year. It's always useful to give a time frame. So that's my tidbit on that. And you can see that I have 3 different kind of ways we can answer this. So I would never give these 3 questions back to back, but this is just showing you 3 different ways. So we're going to go into detail about each of these ways and kind of talk about the pluses and minuses. So the first one is a simple text box. So it's left open to the person taking the survey. They can put in a paragraph about how they feel today. Maybe they're just a simple yes/no answer. So the advantage of the text box is it gives a variety of answers. But one of the limitations is this may not be a scale variable in the end. If they put in a paragraph for one subject and another subject puts in a yes/no, and then maybe a third subject puts in they were a 10 out of 10, those are all different responses, and I can't put that together into one scale. Is the paragraph higher rated than the 10 out of 10? I don't know. So that's a limitation of the text box. So for scale variables, and especially subject to scale variables, the text box probably is not the best methodology to use, but you could use it. The next method is a multiple choice. So here we have come up with 5 categories, and we let them choose one of these 5 categories. So we're limiting the amount of choices they can, but we know that they have to answer to one of these choices. So maybe they're not happy at all, so they can select that one. Or maybe they're only happy a little bit. But one of the limitations to this methodology is, what if they feel they're somewhere in the middle, where they're more happy than only a little happy, but not really happy half the time, maybe a happy quarter of the time? They can't select that one. You have not allowed them to put something in the middle. So that's one of the limitations of this way, that you kind of force them into these categories. Now let's go on to the third and last method we're going to talk about, and this is the visual analog scale. So here, again, I'm going to ask the same question, but instead of one multiple choice, I have a slider bar. And then I can move that slider left or right. So I can say, if I'm not happy at all, I'm going to slide it all the way to the left. Or maybe I'm kind of halfway in between, so I could slide that slider somewhere between not happy at all and about happy half the time. So the advantage of this one is this is really on a continuous state, basically on a scale of, let's say, 0 to 100. I can see how happy you are, and they can put 1, 2, 57, 58, 100 happy. But they can also kind of see what each of the levels mean, that at the bottom it starts not happy at all, in the middle it's about happy half the time, and top half is happy all the time. So it allows for the most kinds of choices. However, one of the limitations to this one is, again, you're secretly hiding the continuous scale behind everything. So if someone maybe marks it up 25%, is that different than someone that moves it up about 26%? Those would come back as different, but we can group them maybe all in the same category. So we're hiding things behind the scenes if we later categorize this into maybe 3 categories, maybe 5 categories. So those are the 3 different methods we have. So I want to talk about a couple conclusions that we kind of get from this. I like to stress that no one method is best. You can use any of these 3 methods, and they can work for you. The first thing when determining what method, 1, 2, or 3, you should use is you should see if it's part of a validated survey. So if it's part of a validated survey, we probably want to stick with the format. Maybe it was an open-ended question in this validated survey that we're going to pull from, so let's keep it open-ended. Or maybe it was a visual analog where we're moving the slider, and we want to keep it that way. So try not to change validated surveys. But if we're creating our own survey, we can choose what we'd like. Generally, for analysis purposes, we prefer continuous methods. So that's going to be more the visual analog scale, where it's going to take on a range of values. We're not forcing them into one of these categories. Later, we can transform that into categorical data. And where we had that visual analog, we can cut that into 3 factors, maybe 5 factors, as many factors as we want. So I find that one works the best for analysis, but some subjects can find it a little overwhelming to how to move the slider. They like their discrete choices, 1 through 5, whatnot. And then finally, open-ended text boxes can be great for qualitative data. So if you just want to get information out there and not really do statistical analysis on it, that's where the open-ended text box really comes from. How happy are you? Let's read their paragraphs about that. But if you're thinking of doing some statistics, whether it's means, comparison of groups between not happy at all and happy all the time, then we'd probably prefer one of the other methodologies. So I think that's all I have right now. Again, I'll always plug the website. You can click on this for additional tutorials and information. So right now I'll open it up. Do we have any questions about scale variables in REDCap right now?
None in the chat window, Robbie. I was going to unmute everybody in case anyone wanted to ask a question. I'm just spinning through and unmuting everybody in case they have a question they'd like to ask rather than type.
And again, if you have questions later, feel free to email us. They should be listed. You can email to me directly on the website, or again, the Biostatistics core in general. That link.
Great. Thanks, Robbie. And I will make this link available on the YouTube. We'll make this video available on YouTube afterwards, and we'll put the link there as well, so you'll be able to click that. So you don't have to write it down right now. Great. Thanks, Robbie. Okay, great. So next we'll move on to REDCap Mobile App Basics. That's my title because I'm new with the REDCap Mobile App, but it was a request last month to present on the capabilities of the REDCap Mobile App. So it's just a tour and sort of a hello world example that I'll walk us through today via screenshots. So we'll start off with when to use the REDCap Mobile App. And this is a discussion that we've had here in the shop over the last couple of weeks. This is not a live mobile app client to REDCap, if you will. The REDCap mobile app is designed to be disconnected. So the best time to use the REDCap mobile app is in those situations where your internet connection is either non-existent, unreliable, or unavailable. What the REDCap mobile app will allow you to do is take a REDCap project and capture data in that situation to either a mobile device like a cell phone or a tablet, and then later sync that back to your REDCap server when the internet becomes available. So that's a key takeaway. This isn't your preferred method for using REDCap. This is just in those situations where you're disconnected. So just keep that in mind. The next bullet, the app collects data offline that'll later be synced. So it is stored locally on the device itself. The folks at Vanderbilt have done a great job of storing that, as I said, in an encrypted state, but then also protecting the data via some PIN numbers that you set upon configuring your project on the mobile device itself. So your mobile device has the data there, it's encrypted, but if you were to lose it, it protects the data further in that you'll be able to log in, view what's been entered, or enter in bogus data, if you will, into the mobile device. So a little added in security there as well. One drawback is that, like we said, the data lives on that mobile device. So it won't be in sync with your complete REDCap database until you sync it. So if you have devices that are out in the field or haven't been accounted for yet, their data won't be considered in your full data set until it's synced. So again, just another thing to keep in mind. You want to sync often and often, as much as you can. And then what we were discussing right before the webinar started today, that the interface does get adjusted for mobile device screens. I'll have an example to show you of what my screen did, but I can't comment too much on what certain controls become in a narrower mobile device format. That'll be something we'll have to cover, and we can look into that in future webinars if you like. So that's kind of just a quick guide on when to use it. So this is, and this I borrowed from the resource page. I'll provide a link to you at the end of these slides. But what is the app workflow to, or rather, what is the workflow to use the mobile app? Well, start by going ahead and creating a project on your local REDCap instance as you normally would. And so I created this one. I think I can't recall the name, David Demo or something along those lines. But then what you'll want to do is grant mobile app rights to your project. And that's down here towards the bottom of the navigation. You see REDCap Mobile App circled. And by clicking that, what happens is you generate an API token that's encapsulated in this QR code. And so you'll be shown a screen that says, get the REDCap app from either the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. And the easiest way to go ahead and configure your app to use this project is to scan that QR code within the REDCap app. So it's very, very easy. I had a couple of failures trying to scan this off my screen, but eventually it did get it. And if you're unable to scan that QR code, you can click on this link below it and get a long numeric code that'll do the same configuration. So within that configuration is the location of your REDCap server, the name of the projects that are available to, the names of the instruments that are available within that project, and then you select the one you want to use. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Any questions on that part so far? Okay. So again, we're starting from scratch here. So what I did was create an instrument within my REDCap database called mobile form, and just some basic, just to show you an example of how the fields will be treated on the mobile app. Just basically first name, last name, favorite color, favorite date for a date picker, and then favorite food is a radio button option. So that's just a simple instrument. And then once you have your instruments ready, you'll go ahead and set up the mobile app. So this is a screenshot of what the REDCap mobile app looks like in the Play Store. And I don't have screenshots of every step here, but you'll want to install on your device, set up the pins, and when I say pins there's 2 pins that you're going to configure. One for admin access to the data in the device, and then another for user access. And that is the pen that you'll use when handing the device over to a participant to fill out a survey or whatever use you have for your instrument. So you'll configure those pins at that time when you're configuring the app. And then finally, scan that QR code that we had on the previous slide. By scanning that QR code, you'll see that the app now knows about it. At the top of this panel here, you can see Mobile App Demo. David, I think that is the name of my REDCap project on our local server. And it says last download and when that was done and how many records are stored within this, this instance on this mobile device. So let's say you have 1,000 records in the project already on your server. At the time of configuring your mobile app, you can actually choose to download 1,000 or 1 or none and start fresh. Just have the data that you need on board the mobile app. And again, that's going to depend upon what you're using it for. But again, the setup's very easy, very simple. So now this this mobile device, my phone in this case, is ready to go. And you're able to now collect data while offline. So on the right-hand side of this panel, I show you what that form looked like back in the designer. And on the left-hand side, here's that, I won't say compromised, but interpreted look at the view on the mobile device. And you know, probably what would be good to do, and if you all have questions, would be to just create a tour across all controls so you could see on one form how this interface affects it. But it's pretty close. I mean, it's not all that different. And your buttons are really the same. You can save a record, save and continue, or cancel out. And you can see this is record ID number 1. But again, keep in mind, if you cover up that form on the right, we're collecting data in the mobile phone, and it's only on the device until we sync it. I'll show you some information about that on the next slide. Any questions there? Okay.
So can your mobile device then see all of the data you have on the home server?
Only if you chose to download it upon configuration. So if you're like, just for this simple hello world type application, I figured we're creating a form to gather data from some participants at a remote site. So I didn't see any need to bring it all down into the client. But if what you were going to do was actually use that data on the mobile device, then you would want to go ahead and when you configure the project, bring all of your, or whatever set or subset of your data down at that time. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so I mentioned that you want to sync as soon as you're online, and this screenshot of the mobile client shows that at this time my mobile client was on Wi-Fi. So I'm able to sync, and this gives you information. It says when the last full sync occurred and how many records there were. If you're then able to log in to REDCap through the browser and go back down to that same REDCap Mobile App option that we showed on the first slide when you enable the project, you're now given this nice mobile app dashboard. And this will show the last, in this space, it'll show you the last 5 synchronizations that occurred. So you can see that I downloaded the project, and I didn't download any data yesterday at 5:23 p.m. And then at 5:25, I uploaded 1 record. And there's a device identifier here on the right, but I could also have placed here and said Android number 1, or iPad, ClinLab iPad or something like that. And then I think this data would become a lot more interesting because you could actually track when they were syncing, who hadn't synced, and see that kind of information. And there's some other options as well here in the navigation, and as we use it more, I'll be able to report more on that. But it is handy that it presents this to you and tracks that. So there's no question about what data made it through. REDCap takes care of that. You don't have to build that into your data structure or build that into your workflow. They're going to tell you what gets synced. Let me go back. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you see when I did that upload at 5:25, it gives you a choice to select a map location. And so when I did the upload, the REDCap client asked me, do you want to send your GPS location along with this data? Which I said, yes, go ahead and do that. So if you click on that map location, it'll actually show you that synchronization occurred in my office at Pennington, which, again, your application may benefit from this or may not benefit from it. It's probably nice to have to know where the synchronizations occurred from, and that's completely built in. It's nothing that you have to do. So again, another nice feature. So that's sort of the scope of my demo. And again, I said I'm new with the mobile app, but if there's some specific questions or areas you want us to explore, more than happy to do that for the next time, or I can answer questions offline if there's something, a specific case you want to look further into. But this is a great page on the project redcap.org website that has some videos, and then also some very useful documents for guidance. It escapes me right now as to which one of these had this, but it had good guidance as to how you should configure your mobile device. That you shouldn't have other things in place and things of that nature on the device. so that it's only used for REDCap, so that if you lose the device, you minimize your loss and things of that nature. But anyway, there's good information here about what folks have done with the mobile app, and I'll add this in the YouTube video as well. And I think that is everything I had. Were there any other questions about the mobile app that I can answer now?
David, I have a question. So once I sync my device to the REDCap, does it remove the data? And if it doesn't, is there a way for me to remove it? Because I don't want to keep storing the data on there forever.
Right. That's a great question, Robbie. I'm not sure about the behavior on that, but I can look into it and see what happened after my sync. I know that it's tracked. It tracked that synchronization, but did it remove it automatically? Let me see. I don't recall it asking me, so that might be the default behavior. Let's see. Okay.
I just envision seeing this if we use it in the field where we're sometimes going to different locations or clinics. So once we go to a clinic for maybe a week, then we want to remove all that data because we're going to go to another clinic the next week. So, well, again, I understand it's secure, but I just want to know, can we take it off?
And I don't, right off the bat, I don't see a way to go back and view that record. But it does say that there's one record on board. Let me look for that, and I'll get that. I'll follow up with that on the list, everyone.
Yeah. I would just think that it should remove it, because the next time you do a sync, you don't want your headers to get off or duplicated. So I would think that once you sync, it's gone.
Yeah.
And
but then that brings up an interesting question. If I download everything because I want to look at everything, the next time I sync, is it going to remove it all? Do I have to keep downloading it? Okay. So I think it could go either way. But it'd be interesting to know, or we can set these permissions to every time I sync, remove it, or automatically keep these records. But
that's a good question. I did get an email address for someone who did a presentation on the mobile app at the REDCap conference, and if we can research, and if we don't see anything, I can email the presenter and ask that question. That's a really good question that did not come up.
Yeah, and I can see as data sets get larger, you really want to be able to have a handle on that.
Right.
Okay, that's great. Great, yeah, we'll follow up on that. Okay, no questions in the chat room, so I'm going to go ahead and hand over to Connie, who's back with us, fresh from REDCap Con 2018 in Chicago, and she's going to talk about what's new in the mobile app that's coming in our next versions.
Yes. So like David said, I'm fresh back from the REDCap conference, and I did go to a session on what's new and what's next for the mobile app, because I knew there was growing interest in our LCATS consortium for that. The presenter went pretty quickly, so I just typed notes as we went, and I do plan on doing some more research on this. So these are just bulleted points from that presentation. And I will do the best I can to answer any questions you may have, but we may have a version 2 of the mobile app how-to and cover some of these things again. So for the what's new in the mobile app, I have not used the mobile app prior, so he said that they have improved the sync process, where records are sent in chunks rather than individually to speed up the response time. And it sounded like there were issues with records stepping on each other if there was a lag in response time from the server. So that was one of the new and improved things, is the way they do the sync. As you're syncing, they are providing notifications throughout the sync to let the user know at what step the sync is and how much there is to go. I don't know if you saw that, David, when you were
I didn't, and again, that's a great example to test because my project was brand new,
Yeah.
so I didn't have any records. But it would be nice to do this with a large record so we could sort of benchmark. Large records so we could benchmark how long that process takes.
Yeah. And if the sync stops due to an error, the app will allow the user to decide how they want to proceed. He did not go into a lot of detail about what those options are, but I would imagine it's, do you want to start over, pick up where you left off? I'm not sure. And he also said that these new features are only going to be available with mobile apps that are developed from this point forward, not with existing mobile apps. It's not backward compatible. If you're familiar with repeating forms, you can now do repeating forms in the mobile app, and it's able to support an infinite number of forms and instances. So a lot of people were excited about that feature.
Nice.
He said if you do want to use the repeating forms, you need to indicate that when you initialize your project before you start collecting data, because you can't go back and add it once you've started collecting data in your REDCap project.
I see.
Some of the other features were the ability to rename your records that are created in the mobile app. So upon sync, you can come in and rename those records if you need to. There's an update history available, but that update history is available from the time of your last sync. So that is just the history on your device from your disconnected data set. There is a sync method selector. Again, I don't know a lot about that. I'm going to look into that some more. They made improvements in the back end and the front end for file upload and download. And the files that are supported in the mobile app are audio, video, and pictures. And PDFs are not supported at this time, although there were many people at the conference who asked for that and used that and are very anxious to get that. But he did not give us a timeline on when that might be available.
You just made me think about using REDCap for conference registration, like snap photos in a disconnected state, and then that night sync them up into a database. That's pretty cool. That's a neat application. Okay.
Okay, so then there's what's next. Oh, did I skip one?
There you
go. What's next for the mobile app? There was a lot of talk about smart variables, which is a new feature in REDCap that we may cover in our next REDCap Con. Our REDCap conference. But there is support for smart variables. They are trying to make better use of the screen real estate. There were fields that were running off the screen or the matrix fields, so they're working on making better use of the screen space. They are allowing for fields to be pinned so that if for some reason the user has to stop where they are collecting data, turn the machine off, maybe the battery goes down or they know it's about to go down, they can pin where they are in their data collection, and then when they come back into the app, they can pick up where they left off. The field history, which I mentioned earlier, will allow you to see what has been collected previously, but now they're going to allow you to revert to an earlier value if you want to. And the starting point for the history is from your last sync. There's the ability to click the full screen to enlarge the matrix field so that they're easier to read on the mobile app. And they are going to allow for more save options. And I'm not sure which version of the mobile app is available in the Google Play and Apple stores now, but he did say that all of these should be ready by the end of 2018, which is right around the corner. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that was, like I said, that's a very high level, what's new, what's next, but I do plan on digging into some of this now that I'm back and have access to our REDCap install and working with the presenters from Vanderbilt on this.
Great. Great. Thank you, Connie. Do we have any questions or ideas or any input from the participants? All right. Well, and then that actually draws us to a close for today. I see we're getting a message in on chat. Oh, hang on. Oh, yes. So the question is, were there other REDCap Con tidbits that Connie can share next time? And I think, yep, she's nodding her head. She's got, I think she has an abundance of things to present for next time. So we'll start fitting these in, and we'll have even more to present at our next one. All right, great. Thank you, and thanks for that. Fantastic. Well,
if there's anything in particular you want to ask about from REDCap Con, let us know, and hopefully that was one of the sessions I got to attend, or I can get more information for you.
And probably when the materials become available too, if you didn't attend, you might be able to dig out the slides. Okay, great. Yeah, so please keep the feedback coming. We'd love to have the content to steer towards, and that's what this slide is. If you have any ideas, drop us an email, redcap@lacats.org, or if you have the time, fill out our REDCap survey for feedback at lacats.org/REDCapFeedback. There's the REDCap training resources that cover a lot of basic operations within REDCap. And if you don't have an instance available to you, but you think you might want to try out, there's this free 1-week demo that Vanderbilt offers at redcapdemo.vanderbilt.edu. And that's a great way to find out, let you kick the tires and see if REDCap's right for you. So again, please email us. We'd love to hear ideas and feedback. And that draws to a close for this month. But we'll talk to you again later in September. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.